You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next big thing, the latest up-and-coming sports journalist, your host, Nathan Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Handy, for that wonderful introduction. As always, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe, having a great week so far, staying warm, staying safe, staying dry. This is episode 6, season 18. This episode, we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens. Recapping the last 2 weeks, the regular season is now officially over for us. But before we get into that, there's a few things I want to say up front. Episode 7. When we recorded and uploaded. Both episodes will be uploaded once they are finished, once they're recorded. Episode 8, we're going to talk about the Maryland women's basketball team. We're going to get ready for Purdue. It's a makeup game for us. We were supposed to play them last Saturday, but due to bad weather, the game got postponed. And then painfully lost to Michigan State last night. I'll talk about that. And the men's Maryland basketball team, I'll talk about that. Friday, we will have a NFL preview playoff edition. I'll be tuning in for that. And I'm just going to continue most long. We will be recapping those games, takeaways, all those different things like that, all the fun stuff. We're going to do that up until the Super Bowl. That'll probably be it for till then. We might take a slight break, but we're probably going to keep going through college basketball. So, as always, please continue to support the channel. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you for all the support you give me and this channel. Much appreciated. Oh, and also as well, there is something I'm going to talk about in one final thought. That's not Raven related, but it is football related. Definitely want to talk about that. But let's get to it. So let's rewind. Last time you saw me, we were recapping the 49ers game. Didn't have an opportunity to record and preview the Dolphins game against Baltimore. And that was, again, I said it was not, I didn't consider it as a playoff game. I considered it another game where Baltimore had to take care of business. Baltimore had to let people know, hey, putting the league on notice, hey, no, we're in the room. We're here. Both teams, we know when they're at their full best, we know they're the best. Full strength, they're at their best. There's no doubt about that. Now, the final score for the Baltimore Ravens versus the Miami Dolphins, it was embarrassing. Practically one-sided, 56-19. Came back home, and now everything runs through Charm City. Got the number 1 seed, home field advantage, and we also won the AFC North. It was much needed. I think that especially more than a week ago at the time, especially coming in that Christmas game against San Francisco, where most had said that San Francisco was going to beat us. And for most people I think have stayed maintain their consistency as San Francisco's to be Super Bowl favorites on that night. And I felt like beating them sent the message, but I think beating Miami was the stamp on the envelope personally, and especially again winning on all three phases of the ball. And it's kind of interesting to once again hear the media not really giving respect where it's given. Now they have done that, but it's more of now we're kind of finding reasons. Please show me where Lamar has done this. Please show me when. It's kind of like some people you're running out of things to say negatively, and against the Ravens. Now, when you're asked to fly in a short week, come back and get ready, I think that was probably the most impressive game that I saw. Everyone could play 60 minutes of football. And again, this was the 5th division leader that we've beaten this season. And again, especially coming out the week 13 bye, holding arguably 2 of the best scoring offenses to 19 points on defense while outscoring them, I believe, up until the Pittsburgh game, 89-38. Again, we played them at their best and welcome challenges. Now, I totally understand that injuries are part of the game. I am all, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. My thoughts and prayers and get well soon. Jalen Waddle, his absence was felt. Raheem Morstead didn't play; he was inactive. Connor Williams, Isaiah Wayne, Robert Hunt, injuries. Now, again, I just want to say this, and I'm not coming across as being disrespectful, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from. The Baltimore Ravens have dealt with injuries like this, and we didn't get a lot of sympathy. If anything, we got trashed. We got, injuries are no excuse. And I'm gonna keep it real. I have empathy because of the injuries, and I feel bad because I'd like to see what these guys look like at their full strength. I just felt like I'll start on the side of Miami. I think just failing to execute, and I've felt like they just got punched in the mouth. And congratulations, Ty. I mean, Tyreek Hill in that game, he broke his own team record for 1,714 yards in that game. He dropped a touchdown pass that cost him a potential touchdown pass that hurt. Then the defense allowed Justice Hill to convert a 3rd and 16 on the open drive. I thought defensively, offensively, 3rd downs and red zone opportunities are the most important part of the football game on both sides of the ball. And Miami wasn't no better in that. The week before to get the win against Dallas, they did that. I mean, they late scoring 10 points. Those last 2 minutes helped them get the victory against Dallas. Now, Miami got the ball back with about, for example, in the first half, if I remember correctly, it's about 21-13. And then Tua threw that interception. And then there was the 36-yard touchdown to Isaiah. And then it was 28-13. Opening kickoff, 35-13. And it just this was a bad loss on everybody. And again, one could only argue what it would look like, and then it transitions into the injuries. But I felt like I thought this was arguably coming towards the end, because then this is where staying healthy the most matters. And Didn't see it. Xavier Howard, he went down to a foot injury. And, Bradley Chubb, obviously, with a no contact injury, knee injury, out for the year. Just they've dealt with a lot. And that's a lot. And, I know that, they lost to Buffalo. I thought they had a chance to win that game. And even looking at Tyreek in that game, wasn't 100%. The injuries are just creeping up personally with Miami, and I don't trust them against Kansas City. I think it's going to come down to the offense. I think that offense is going to have to carry that defense because I'm not having you're really thin at pass rush, and then Xavier Howard. Oh no, you're going on the road, so I'm really curious to see what that'll look like. For me, securing a first round bye was big for us. It sucks. Only really, I've wished 2 teams per conference can get a first round bye under the new format, but under the new format, you just won. And again, we've dealt with some serious injuries this year. J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews and Marcus Willis practically playing with one arm, and then Keaton Mitchell went down. It's been a tough year with these injuries, and then I felt like they played well, and we'll talk about them not playing. The most of the stars not playing in Pittsburgh, but I felt as though staying healthy is going to be the key. And I'm not going to lie, too, the depth in this game against Miami was really key for me. They played really well. Kevin Zeitler didn't play, if I remember correctly. Brandon Steers didn't play, but it doesn't matter. Guys stepped up. Arthur Millette, I know he left with an injury, but he was one of many players that played well on both sides of the ball and made contributing plays. And then as the game progressed and, Marlon Humphrey went down with an injury or the calf, I remember correctly. Darryl Worley, Michael Pierce, they had stinger injuries. So, again, and this was coming in, and again, that San Francisco game was a little physical. But again, I felt as though this is probably the most deepest Ravens team that I've seen in quite some time. I argue to say maybe that 2012 team, we won the Super Bowl, might be, but this might be the deepest team I've ever seen. The running backs did a very good job. All of them had combined 120 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Patrick Ricard, the tight ends had 4 receiving touchdowns. And even Tyler Huntley finished with a perfect passing rating with his own touchdown. You had 5 total tackles in the open field. Justice Hill, he had a big game. Everybody did pretty well. And I can't say enough about what they did. Now, personally, if you ask me, I think that this game solidified Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversation. It doesn't, again, those that just watch the stats and don't watch the games, you cannot tell me that Lamar Jackson is an MVP. To throw 5 touchdowns in this game, 18 and 21. He had a QBR of 158.3. You're not going to tell me, especially this year, I've seen him bring his team back. His performance this year, he's just been spectacular. And I feel as though at some point, the man needs his credit. And when I look at Lamar this year, I see a guy who looks a lot more happier because I don't know what this team would have looked like with Greg Roman so at the helm. The offense just looks a whole lot better. But listen, I know when it comes to this review conversation, the critics towards Lamar Jackson, they're never going to rest. Someone's always going to find something to say, that's not an MVP. Like Richard Sherman, for example, talked about that this will be the worst statistical season for an MVP. Mind you, Peyton Manning won it. If you look up until just before this game, look at Peyton Manning's numbers the year he won MVP in 2008. And look at Lamar's numbers up until before this game. The exact same numbers, practically. Peyton Manning had a better record. So is it most valuable player, most valuable team? And again, that year, I mean, you could make a case. I think Phillip Rivers, I think, was in the conversation, and maybe Drew Brees, but their teams were mediocre. No, again, I think a lot of it is again finding ways to say not MVP. Again, it would not bother me if Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill won MVP. Wouldn't bother me. I just want to make sure that Lamar Jackson gets his respect. And some people are trying to come to the light when it comes to that, without a shadow of a doubt. But hey, look, it was great to see out there as well. Give Eric DeCosta his flowers. He's, we've really, about what, we're at about 8-9 months ago, to really, really, again, because I laugh, and the same people that were criticizing Eric DeCosta and the Ravens organization, particularly, I forgot what show it was. I think it was at one point. I want to say Brandon Marshall was on this podcast. I think Ashley Nicole Moss. I can't remember what it was, but I remember something that they said, and it was towards why they're not paying Lamar Jackson, and it was painting them like as if they were this cheap franchise that doesn't pay players. And then, mind you, for the most part, up until the season, everyone was questioning Lamar Jackson and his injury. But when you look at this team, you kind of were like, well, where is this team going to go? That I like the fact that he publicly asked for a trade in the midst of a contract dispute. No. Everybody was like, if you let him go, like Eric DeCosta, that's your job, blah, 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 blah. And he got the deal. He got the deal done. And so there's many other deals. Look at the acquisition of OBJ. I don't think he overpaid for him, but I think the biggest thing is I think he was just more of a vet for the young guys. I think you need a leader at wide receiver, and I felt like that's something Baltimore lacked. Getting Zay Flowers. Marquise Brown had said it in an interview that they wanted him to draft Zay. He wanted them to draft Zay Flowers. He's I think he's part of rebuilding that receiver group for sure. Rashard Bateman. I know it's kind of been a rocky couple years, but I believe he will turn it around. He's shown flashes this season, and got to give a guy time. And getting Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney, two veteran players, especially Kyle Van Noy, who has championship pedigree. I cannot speak on what they've done. I just feel like it's just been a rejuvenation, and I do expect them to somewhere else to be paid. It wouldn't faze me if they took a pay cut. Well, for us, respectfully. But I'm more just proud of just what Eric DeCosta has accomplished this year. And you can't speak to the job that he's done. And it's all about patience. And then when, the old saying, patience is a virtue. And I'm really proud of them, pretty proud of us. It's been these last couple of years were tough. And I was kind of curious to see what this team looked like. A lot of people picked us to finish last. They didn't trust Todd Monken, other Lamar Jackson critics, and to where we are now, up until this game against Pittsburgh, which we'll talk about a little bit. Can't speak enough on the greatness of what we're doing. And starts with Coach Harbaugh, starts with Eric DeCosta, but it just starts with everybody in their place for each other. And I'm real proud of those guys. But for Miami, hey, look, you just got to go into the playoffs, be ready for Kansas City. I don't trust Kansas City, especially that offense, because knowing how they look this year. And again, but just remind everyone said Patrick Mahomes needs help. Again, we're keeping the same energy. I wish the same energy was given to Lamar Jackson his first couple years, but I'm gonna let it go. And then also to Justice again, just the running game was spectacular. For me, I think Justice Hill, I think his play made a difference. I think he's more of a passing block running back. He found himself on the depth chart again. Now, I'm not I'll talk about. I'll hold off on that until we get to the Pittsburgh game. But Justice Hill, even though he doesn't generate, a lot of play, his role should not be taken for granted. And I feel like we have succeeded because of Justice Hill, and putting those pieces together, that makes a big difference. And unfortunately, this kind of now that we have the number 1 seed, this gives resemblance of 2019. I'm a little nervous on that. He did mention that, and we did, we painfully lost to Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. And we're not going to talk about that. That was 5 years ago. And that was then. This is now. I'm curious to see how we will approach this same scenario. I'm curious. I think for the most part, I think we'll be ready. Now, only I don't like now when you have a 53-man roster, especially you got to have some starters on the field. So I'm just curious to see what they'll look like going into the playoffs. But before we get into the game against Pittsburgh, which we lost painfully, let's get into the sponsor of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast, and that is Zagnif Apparel. Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to dress like you're already famous? You can and you will with Zagnif Apparel.
The following is a presentation of Zagnif Productions, LLC. Introducing Zagnif Apparel. Our comfortable line of leisure wear and athletic wear will have you comfortable and stylish at any occasion. Whether you're at the gym, out shopping, or just relaxing at home. Whether you're an athlete or just want to lay around the house, we've got the perfect outfit for you. Stop by our website today and pick up your favorite pieces. Zagnif Apparel. Dress like you're already famous.
You can and you will dress like you're already famous with a nice 15% off, as you see on the screen. But 15% off your final purchase. My discount code Big Nate. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out Zagnif Apparel. You can and you will dress like you're already famous. I promise you. We'll be right back. And we're back, and painfully, let's just get right into it. The Baltimore Ravens lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-10. It was week 18, our 6-game winning streak. For us, I know for playoff standards, some would consider it a meaningless game because practically we had backups, nothing to play for. However, this is the 8th matchup where we've lost 6 of them, and without Big Ben. So ring your head on that one.
Bullshit.
For me, I guess coming out of this game with no injuries, I take that as a plus. And you can only play a limited amount of players in a meaningless game. I thought the biggest thing was preserving a lot of guys. Um, I would say the positive thing is there's no long-term injuries. They did have some guys that left with some minor injuries, like Geno Smith. I think at one point went to the medical tent. That was pretty much it. I didn't see anything else outside of that. Maybe Deshaun Phillips was part of that collision. Patrick Queen, I think, went out the game. That's when we saw Trenton Simpson, former this last year draftee, especially with Roquan Smith and Malik Harris not playing. He had a really good game before he went out with the injury. Jalen Phillips. Deshaun Phillips, excuse me. He played well before he got hurt. Brent Urban left the game with a concussion, didn't come back, and yes, that showed. Now, again, mind you, this was a Saturday game, and then it was in the midst of that ridiculous storm that I felt like really nothing should have been played because of just to be honest, University of Maryland women's basketball team it was a home game. They were playing Purdue, and I was covering that game, and they delayed the game because there was a leak through the Xfinity Arena, and they postponed the game because they just couldn't stop the leak because it was just bad. Because they up until this week they were calling for it to be a bad storm. Then as the week progressed, this part of Maryland's going to get some rain. It's going to be mostly towards the north of us, and it just was ugly out there. I thought really we got to do a better job with ball security. We really, really looked bad. 8 fumbles with just combined both. And especially from the running back position, I felt like that hurt. You got to protect the football to win games. That's something Coach Harbaugh said, and I'm going to echo those sentiments. That's not just against a team like Pittsburgh, and this is a team, Pittsburgh. I didn't really expect them to make the playoffs, but they're going to the playoffs. Congratulations! But you're not going to win games when you're looking like that. I mean, they put the ball on the ground twice to 6 fumbles Pittsburgh had, and theirs was the timing of these fumbles was just weird. I mean, Melvin Gordon, if I remember correctly, had one in the second quarter, the first one in the second quarter. He didn't touch the ball until the fourth. And, we got the offense right back with the ball, and we was one of the fourth ones we fumbled up, but that we didn't generate any turnover. We didn't any points off those turnovers. And in the second one, Gus Edwards, it came at the worst time, in my personal opinion, in the fourth quarter. It was about 7 minutes left, and we were down a touchdown. That was the second straight game with a fumble, and they gave them the ball with a short field and already a field goal range. But Melvin Gordon, he's well documented with ball security. I think he has 19 career fumbles and about 26 overall. And Gus Edwards is a typical reliable running back. I just think again, he's just had 5 career and like 7 overall. But I'm really curious to see how that's going to be a factor come playoff time. Because when you're playing a team potentially like a Buffalo, maybe like a Cleveland, Houston, ball security is going to be key. And, you need to keep the ball high and tight and using both hands and even securing the ball in practice, especially in weather conditions that may not be appealing. Jadeveon Clowney got his signing bonus. He got a $750,000 incentive. He just needed another to reach 9 sacks on the year. He accomplished that goal. Did really good, so I'm happy for him. He was ecstatic, so congratulations to him. Nelson Aguilar needed 58 yards and 10 catches to have an incentive of $700,000. 58 receiving yards more he had a total of $250,000, and then the 10 catches for $500,000. He looked pretty good. He still kind of fell short. He was 5 catches, 39 yards, so give him that. Justice Hill needed 113 yards to trigger. They needed those to trigger their incentives, and it didn't happen. Justice Hill needed 113 yards to trigger his incentives, like $250,000. Unfortunately, he was nowhere even close. I think he was targeted 10 times and he only had 3 catches, 26 yards. So disappointing on that front. Defensively, I'm curious to see what this offseason will look like, because I'm really hoping that Patrick Queen stays, because he and Roquan Smith, I think, are arguably one of the best duos, especially when they starting back to last season. Patrick Queen will be an unrestricted free agent, and I don't know what will happen. We used last year our 3rd round draft pick to take Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. He's been predominantly on special teams up until this game. We've seen flashes of what he can be. 7 high solo tackles, 2 for a loss, I think 6 solo tackles and a quarterback hit. He had his first career sack, especially in that second drive of the 3rd quarter. He played a great game. I'm curious to see what will happen. If Patrick does go, which I hope not, I think we will be okay. My only issue is consistency. I know that, great collegiate defender, made great plays, especially in space, behind the line of scrimmage, did all those things. But that transition is different. I'm a little disappointed in got Ajabo. I was hoping he'd take a little step forward. Oweh, I thought he would take a little step forward. So I'm kind of see what it looks like. I feel like it'll be interesting to see. But Trenton Simpson, I'll give him as shot to Sean Spencer and Alex Loosemore, I'll give him a game ball. He looked pretty good out there. The run defense is still suspect. Painfully, for the 9th time this season and the 4th time in the last consecutive weeks, we've allowed an opposing team to rush the ball for over 100 yards. And I simply
I can't defend that. What do you want me to say to that?
Pittsburgh racked up 155 yards rushing on 39 yards, averaging 4 yards a game, a carry. Again, understood defense with probably had 2nd and 3rd stringers out there. I mean, they played most of their guys in the first half, even in the second half, but that's no excuse. These guys, they did a poor job getting off blocks, limiting yards at the contact. Excuse me. It took about at least 3-4 guys to take like a guy like Jalen Warren or Najee Harris down. I mean, you could go back. I look at there's examples where they're getting blown off the ball and they're getting just demolished in the trenches without really doing anything. I mean, that's not what the 2000 Ravens defense would have done. Just that was pretty bad. And I think that's something historically defensively we've always been a run first defense, and that was pretty bad. And I think that's something I'm going to be watching. And again, I felt as though I don't know if this was an example of your kind of giving up more yards to slow the game down. I mean, yeah, they got stops and tackles for loss, but they're not giving up long stops. I mean, yeah, we were able to beat San Fran and Miami with, averaging 138, 137 yards, if I remember correctly, in both games. But yeah, it can't look like that in the playoffs because somebody will expose it. A Jerome Ford, James Cook, Devin Singletary, C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen. they might expose that. So I was a little disappointed in how we looked at that. So as I stated, Pittsburgh has beaten us 7 of their last 8 meetings, and 6 of those with Big Ben. So much respect to them. And they've made the playoffs. I wish them all the best. TJ Ward went down with an injury. And he'll be out. I was expecting him to play. That's an injury you don't heal from like that. You can get treatment, all those different things like that, but nobody recovers in less than a week, and because you're risking further injury. So it's just an next man up mentality. It was the right decision, even though we lost this game, to rest those guys. We had with RG3 that year we won the division. We beat tennis, that last game. But you want those guys healthy. OBJ, Zay, Kevin Zeitler, Marlon Humphrey, even Kyle Hamilton, and that's gonna be important. Now Tyler Huntley, this is also my next point. This would be his last game really officially as a Raven backup. I like Tyler Huntley. I think he's great. He's been the guy. He's a 12. He has a 13-12 record as a starter, but this game proved he's not the backup for Lamar Jackson. I don't think the skill sets are totally different. I think he needs to be in a system like Tennessee, Houston. I see struggles, and it was one full display. I just think that his decision making with the ball at times is very sus, can be sus. And again, we were already kind of like, well, what would he look like coming into the season? Was he going to stay or not? I mean, he signed a 1-year deal for $2.6 million. So, and they just signed Malik Cunningham off New England's practice squad. So, I'm curious to see what he does. I mean, he's thrown 65% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 7 picks, with a QBR of 777. I think it's like 76.8 when I round that up. This year, 209 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a 99.3 passer rating. So, I don't know. We'll see. We will see what it looks like. But whatever happens, I wish him all the best. But I think it's time we move on from Tyler Huntley. And that's not throwing shade, but I think he needs a reliable backup that I think can run the offense like Lamar. And I don't see that at times. He's shown flashes, but I don't know. But let's get into the one final thought of the podcast.
Thoughts are running through my mind, so I took some time to find a minute or two to organize them.
So the one final thought is the New Orleans Saints. Their last regular home season game, they embarrassed the Dirty Birds, the Atlanta Falcons, and there was this discord, particularly Monday and even Tuesday after the game. The last play of the game, Jamal Williams ran it in for his lone touchdown this year for the Saints. Jamal Williams, running back last year with the Detroit Lions, stepped in there in the absence of DeAndre Swift, who was dealing with some injuries. Detroit moved on from him. He signed with New Orleans. I know at one point he was kind of a starter. He wasn't quite as effective, but we all knew he was going to be Alvin Kamara's backup once Alvin came off his suspension. I had no problem with him going for it. And here's why. If you actually remember, their guy threw an interception. See, again, and this is once again, context matters. I thought it was tasteless. I thought it was unprofessional for Shannon Sharp. I think that was not the right words to say. To say he's not a leader. I'd cut him today. Like, you're not going to tell me, especially knowing Shannon Sharp, he's on teams where they've blown up opponents like that. And I think, and again, we're not talking about, what happened in Tampa. I don't know why we needed to bring that up, because if we're going to go that route, what happened in Tampa Bay with Jameis Winston was not all on his shoulders. That's just my opinion. That I just think that when he was bringing that up made no sense. Jameis Winston, to me, is a leader. Now, Dennis Allen called for the victory formation. They overruled it and said, no, we're going to give Jamal Williams a touchdown. The team agreed on that. Offense agreed on it. You play till the whistle blows. And Atlanta should have stopped them. If Atlanta felt some kind of way, they should have ran the clock out. They didn't have to pass the ball when the game was practically over. They should have ran the clock out, not give them the ball back. Give you another example. The Baltimore Ravens. This was a couple years ago. We're up at the Mile High City playing Denver. This is when Vic Fangio's head coach. A lot of people forget the Baltimore Ravens consecutively up until that game, I believe, had tied or passed the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most rushing yards a game. They I think the record, they need another 5 or 6 yards. But people forget, before that happened, Drew Lock had threw an interception in that game. It gave Baltimore the ball back. Ran the ball. Yes. We beat them. Cincinnati came to Baltimore. Cincinnati. Joe Burrow threw for over almost 500 yards on a depleted secondary. And I was pissed about it. And I remember one of my guys, Cameron Crump, was like, take the L and let's suck it up. You had no problem with them running the ball against Denver. Why are you crying now when they did it since they threw the ball against you? He's right. Denver. I mean, Miami just scored 70 points on Denver. Like, if you have a problem with it, stop them. But I do think that there is this. I do think you have kind of lost the locker room when the backup quarterback and the offense overrule what you're saying. No, we're not doing that. We're going to give him the ball. And I had no problem with it. If anything, Jameis Winston's not the guy you should really go after. It's really Jamal Williams in all this, because he really, really hasn't been productive this year. And some of that's not his fault. I mean, the Saints just collectively as an offense, they need some retooling. But I wasn't mad at him. He handled it professionally well, with all the questions. And again, if the Falcons had a problem with it, should have stopped him. And Arthur Smith too. Like, brother, man, your job was gone practically after the season. And again, I'm just going to say this because I heard someone make a comment on the show that wasn't a national televised media. I think it was a podcast. It was on here, Spotify, something like that. I can't remember. And they're blaming him for how the offense looked. No, that's not on coaching. Some of that's on front office. Kyle Pitts has not developed. And I wasn't sold him coming out of college. Drake London, Desmond Ridder doesn't fit that system. Bijan, I think will be a great running back, but they need to retool that offense. So, that was interesting, but I had no problem with it. So, I would have done the same thing. So, hey, You play till the whistle ends. If you had an issue with it, should have stopped them. And if anything, you had the ball. Why didn't you not run the clock out? Arthur Smith. Think about that. Should have ran the clock out. So there was a lot. And again, it's their last home game. Because I know the Saints, that team's going to be demolished after this year. But I have no problem with it. That was my one final thought. So that's going to conclude this episode of the Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Be tuned in for future episodes. Episode 7 will be recorded. We got to talk about the Washington Commanders painfully. And with that being said, y'all have a good night. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.
I know that loving me wasn't always easy. And you felt like walking away when you couldn't see me. Felt like all your hope was gone. But I'm right here on bended knee. Please be my wife and stay with me. Please take my hand through stormy weather. We will stay, yeah. Let me be the one when you need me, I'll be there. Just to let you know that I really, 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 really do care. Yeah. Baby, I promise. Baby, I promise. I'll be right here for you. No matter the problem. No matter the problem, baby. I'll be here by your side. 'Cause the love we share can never be denied.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the next big thing, the next up-and-coming sports journalist, Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
I want to thank you, yeah. I want to thank you. Ooh. For all the times you put up with me. Thank you. And you helped me retain my sanity. Thank you. I want to thank you. And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything.